I was sick, sick unto death with that long agony, and when they at length unbound me, and I was permitted to sit, I felt that my senses were leaving me. The sentence, the dread sentence of death, was the last of distinct accentuation which reached my ears. After that, the sound of the inquisitorial voices seemed merged in one dreamy, intermediate hum. It conveyed to my soul the idea of revolution, perhaps from its association in fancy with the burr of a mill wheel. This only for a brief period, for presently I heard no more.
I didn't see you there.
It all started early this morning.
From hunting ghosts to Bigfoot, UFOs, cryptids, true crime, paranormal, and more.
I've always wanted to see a UFO.
Oh, I was researching for your entertainment.
That's Bigfoot's cat.
He basically wrote the book on modern culture.
We aren't really comedians.
What if Buddha did cocaine?
The Addams Family on meth. This is the Black Cat Report.
See you on the other side.
Good morning, evening, afternoon, and night, and welcome to the Black Cat Report and episode 102. I am Joey, and with me is the serial gravitator, the sonic abridger, and the semantic shunner, Gil.
Allegedly.
Alliteration, allegedly.
I think I already used that cold open before. Anyways, hello everybody.
Well, before we get into our episode topic, we want to apologize for the Beers, Booze, and Boogeyman episode if you were listening live.
Yeah.
YouTube live shut down, and there was literally nothing that we could do about it.
Too hot for tube.
Yes, too hot for the tube. However, the episode will be put up on all of our platforms so you can listen to the awesome Bigfoot story that was literally happening as YouTube was shut down, that we recorded continuously.
No. Okay, so backstory, Joey, you didn't even know this yet. None of the folks that were watching it live heard any of the Bigfoot story. This is going to be a complete gem for them. Like,
then I can't wait.
Heard it. And let's just say shit got weird real fast. Like, you've never heard a Bigfoot story like this before. I guarantee you.
No, you have not. No.
You might have read about some in some fan fiction romance novels that are on the internet, but oh boy, howdy. And this is also a reminder too, we are coming up on, let's see, what day is Beer Booze Boogeyman the next episode going to be? Is going to be Saturday, July 6th. So we are about 2 weeks away from the next Beer Booze Boogeyman. Joey, do you want to intro that since it is your episode officially?
I do. I really do. So the episode topic will be called Theories on Tap, your favorite conspiracies. And I know that we have talked long and hard about moon conspiracies and talked long and hard about other conspiracies. And, you know, if you listen to the episode, if you listen to any episode, you pretty much know my thoughts on moon conspiracies. But you know what? If you want to bring them, I'll just click off. I'll just turn off the live and won't be on the episode anymore. So you'll be the cause of that. But we want to hear any conspiracy that you have. Also, make up a conspiracy if you don't have one. This is it. Make up one. Please do. I cannot wait. It is airing on July 6th, going live at 6 p.m. Central Time. So that's going to be 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Well, anyways, let's roll right into today's topic. Also, for those who don't know, that excerpt in the intro was from The Pit and the Pendulum from Edgar Allan Poe and describes heavily what happened during part of our topic today. Yeah, actually remembered that as I was researching into it, and I was like, there's a fucking short story that is about the Spanish Inquisition, and I thought it was nicknamed The Crucible, but that was the Salem witch trials. So I had to Google and find out that it was The Pit and the Pendulum by Edgar Allan Poe.
Nice.
I remember it so fucking vividly when I was a kid because the short story, and I'll read more of it later at the end, the short story is so, if you get a chance, read it. It's so dark. It's so fucking dark.
Yeah.
And it describes the torture, the stuff that happens in detail. And it's not just like it wasn't just the physical torture. It was the mental torture that got these people.
Okay, so I have actually two things to add. One that you just reminded me of here. So Edgar Allan Poe, obviously full fucking respect, in the English literary and like speaking world, and obviously outside of that after translations. One of the founding fathers of like the push for the macabre and the paranormal and popularizing it and making the weird little freaks and weirdos that we are, making that socially acceptable, or at least like carving out a space in society, So like obviously, fuck yeah, Edgar Allan Poe all the way.
Yep.
The second, which you just made me think of, this is coming out on June 16th. June 17th is Art Bell's birthday. Obviously, he's been passed on for a number of years now. Keep an eye out on social media because allegedly elements within the Black Cat Report might allegedly be involved in a pretty substantial update and release of one of Art Bell's most popular and influential episodes from 1992, allegedly. It's going to be through a series of backdoor channels because of copyright laws, allegedly. And I think y'all are gonna like it. But we're allegedly freaking out over here in excitement about it. So just a little wink from a black cat, is telling you guys keep an eye out on social media platforms that day for announcements and just hey, that there might have been a cat involved.
Yeah, and allegedly is part of our topic today.
Yeah.
So truthfully, well, as I was doing some research for today's topic, scouring the internet and books. Thing that we normally do, I was looking for some historical stuff that jumped out to me as interesting, which is literally how I figure out my part of the BCR topics. I just look until something jumps out, and that's how I find characters. That's how I found friggin' Steed Bonnet. That's how I found some of the crazy people we've done episodes on.
I've been actively sneaking into his house and just like meticulously with an X-Acto knife cutting out single pages, so when he starts flipping through his history books, shit actually jumps out at him, and he's like, "Oh my god, this is brilliant!"
Yeah. This is perfect.
Sneak away.
Yeah, so crazy I don't even notice it. It's just like one of those pop-out things when you open up the cards and it jumps out at you. It's pretty much the exact same thing.
Something smells like cigarettes and beer in my house. Oh, this is a great idea.
Yeah, it's a good idea. Yeah,
it's just me standing like Homer in the bushes, like in your yard.
Yeah. Fades into the background.
Cigarette ember, just like
yeah, it's like, oh god, there he is again.
My bush is on fire again.
God damn it! I like that bush.
Just put it out.
Wouldn't keep burning.
My water bill's insane these days.
Feel like there's also holes in my water hose too. I can't keep putting this out.
Where's all this black cat
one.
hair coming from?
And data is what we like to research through. But as you all know, I'm a history buff. Probably got it from my dad and his love of history. He is mostly just war history, but he still kind of transferred it over. I like to go way, way back. He's like World War II history, World War I history. I mean, just
Rookie.
World War II pretty much. Yeah, I like to go way, way back, like centuries back, to find interesting people and characters of history. Well, I found this guy named Tomas De Torquemada, and he's our subject for today. Tomas De Torquemada was the Grand Inquisitor of Spain in the Spanish Inquisitions. Today's source is a short book called Tomas Torquemada, The Grand Inquisitor Years. The board ruled 1483 through 1498 by Paul Powell, and other sources listed in the show notes. So, let's get into it.
Hell yeah.
Tomas de Torquemada was born in 1420 on October 14th in the Kingdom of Castile. Most have theorized that he was born in the small village of Torquemada, hence his name of Torquemada, de Torquemada, which is of Torquemada.
Yeah.
Yeah, literally, like Joseph de Culpeper, is Joseph Culpeper.
Jesus of Nazareth.
Yeah, exactly, yep. Well, throughout his young age, he was described as a pious and otherwise upstanding kid.
Who the fuck describes a kid as pious? I already
person
don't
who's-
like this kid. I already don't like-
His family was also in the clergy.
Yeah.
They're in Spain at this time. Most of his family was in the clergy.
a
So
religious aristocracy, but like,
Uh-huh.
but also, I've never seen a kid and be like, they're pious. Like, what the fuck? Like, that's just not a word you associate with a kid.
Devious, you know? Yeah. That kid's devious, never pious.
Yeah, nefarious, maybe. You know, like,
Yeah, nefarious. Yeah, always bad.
yeah.
Always bad. You know,
Well,
unless
you
they're
might be,
serial
like,
killers.
bright.
Unless they're serial killers.
You might
So,
be bright.
if-
You might be like respectful. Like that's a respectful young kid.
True.
You know, like
Yeah, but
you
not
might be
pious.
like a mature child. You know, if you've had enough trauma in your childhood to force you into adulthood at an early age, like you know, like. But
Yeah.
no kid, no 5-year-old should be described as pious.
No. And, you know, his parents were Pedro Fernandez de Torquemada and Mencia Ortega, who were both
Great
just
names.
normal people. They were both, they were both just pious, normal people. They went to church. They were in church. They were clergy in the, you know, did everything for the church.
Yeah.
And nothing of note that we know of was written about them, except for of Tomas.
Yeah.
There actually has been some contention of Tomas being of a Jewish converso descendant, but there was genealogy done on his family and descendants, and they really didn't find through the genealogy like recently that he was a Jewish converso, which I'm mentioning that for a specific purpose because of what he would do later on.
Yeah.
And I'll explain what a converso is in a second.
Yeah.
But adding to this, he did have an uncle named Juan de Torquemada, and he, funny enough, was the opposite of Tomas. He was actually a big proponent of helping Jewish conversos because earlier on they were pretty much like
Yeah.
just set outside, you know, like get out, you know.
The long history of all Jewish folks, which is just complete and utter discrimination. And
Let's
Not good
add
things.
this to
Yeah.
us. It wasn't just the Jewish folks in Spain; it was Jewish and Muslims. So
Yeah,
both
the
of them
Moors.
were being just like wrecked.
Well,
Yep, the Moors.
black Muslims specifically.
Yep.
You know, it was the Moors.
Yep.
If anybody's a Shakespeare fan,
Yep.
you know exactly what I'm talking about. But yeah.
They were closely related to the extras, you know.
What?
Well, a converso is a person who converts from Judaism to Christianity to comply with the doctrines made by the Spanish clergy and also the Pope in Rome, because they just were like, you should be Catholic.
I was thinking about it. You should be Catholic. All right. Oh, damn it.
Yeah. No matter what you believe, you should just be Catholic. Okay.
Yeah.
Literally what they did. And we'll go into that a little more later
Yeah.
as well. But while he was young, Tomas excelled in school and obtained a bachelor's degree in theology. And after that, he joined the Dominican order at San Pablo Monastery. So he was known to be a semi-flagellant.
Oh, so he kind of liked to get hit a little bit.
A little freaky.
He's a little freaky. Okay. You want to explain what
Well-
flatulence are?
I will in a second. Yeah. So
Flatulence.
one of the things he would do, he would wear coarse cloth garments underneath his Catholic monk garments and use the same for his bed linen. So basically, he was sleeping on these coarse linens, like basically ripping into his skin. He was wearing it, so he's like doubling that up. He wore no shoes, and he wouldn't eat meat, which is
All right.
usually they wear shoes. Monks wear shoes. He just was like, nope, not going to do that.
Well, okay. So I am thinking here for our folks that, fall somewhere in the spectrum, right? So like they have autism to some extent, some level. Holy fuck, the torture of like those fibers and fabrics doing this.
Yep.
Like, yeah, damn. Like 1,000 million times worse than,
And to be fair, think about the cloth garments they had back then and the underwear they used to wear. It
Oh,
wasn't
shit.
like silk and cotton that we have today that's like,
It was dollar store toilet paper already. Like,
yeah, it's wrapped around your body, like
Yeah.
just and terrible. So flagellants were certain sects of people in the medieval times who would purposefully hurt themselves in a form of penance, generally using some type of whip or contraption to hurt oneself in
The
the
nine
penitence
tails.
of God. Yeah, nine tails. And they used to, sometimes they would use these kind of mace. almost mace-like things that they would hit themselves with that would dig into their skin, and it's horrifying. And they would honestly, during the times of the Black Death, which was in the first one, which was the mid 1300s, they would run around in big troops and shows and just hit themselves, and like almost like a stomp troop going around the U.S. but stomping on their nuts and stomping on their faces.
Instead of a flash mob, it was a bash mob, and they were just bashing themselves.
Yeah. And what's crazy to think about is the first Black Death was in the 1300s, was only 70 years earlier than when he was born.
Okay, so that really
not that far
set
off.
a tone. Yeah. This is what happens when you don't have enough cats around. Like, people just get like really, like, they just think everything is just hard and not fluffy and awesome and delicate and cute and perfect.
Yeah.
And so they just start beating themselves, which is an argument for cats, honestly.
Truth.
But yeah, no, these folks, like, one of their main, I guess you would say, like, gospels or like main tenets was kind of like an obsession over the passion of the Christ, the actual story of Christ's crucifixion.
Yeah, the Mel Gibson movie.
It was like they were huge Gibson fans, and which is also where the anti-Semitism comes in later, right?
But exactly, yes.
But
on all accounts,
every account that crosses decades. But no, so these folks who really focused, instead of going like Paul or Luke or whatever, and like those gospels, they really fucking like hammered into the passion of the Christ. Yeah, quite literally. And reenacting their gods, their saviors, right? What they went through, and really seeing that as a way to bring salvation to the masses by reenacting what Jesus did. Be like Jesus, basically. And Jesus, he towards the end, minus the last 3 days, it was kind of like not that good. It was pretty harsh. So they thought that like beating themselves would help cleanse the world, beating themselves, torturing themselves, going through pain and pure fucking suffering and torment, right? That was how they could get close to God, and also in the process help liberate the sins, the pains, the suffering of their constituency, their disciples, right? Their congregation, whatever, the people of their country, whoever the fuck they decided was human that week, and fuck everybody else. But they really so in going through plague towns, like, you would have that like merry band of people that beat the fuck out of themselves, these people. They would go through whipping themselves or hitting themselves with like maces, which were, picture in zombie movies when there's a baseball bat and a shit ton of nails in it. It was like that, but the spikes were like giant pyramids coming out of it, and they were metal, and they fucking did more damage than nails in a baseball bat. It was brutal, like flesh getting ripped off, and they would go through and beat themselves in order to cleanse towns of the plague, which people thought was brought on as punishment from the heavens. So in order to clear that punishment, they had to punish themselves in order to suffer for everybody else's sins, just like Jesus did.
And what's funny is they literally brought the plague to those towns.
Oh yeah, no, all the blood and
them,
open pores, the blood, open pores, the pus, the fucking traveling. Not a good idea during a plague,
Nope. As we learned.
And also the handful of people that treated people at that time would have to treat those fucking monks, and then guess what?
And then they died.
They would treat other people, and those folks were already fucking sick, which made them more susceptible to the plague that the monks fucking brought. So, and that's why they shouldn't have killed all the fucking cats. Anyways.
Exactly. And I think we talked about that on our Black Cat episode.
It was like episode 3 or some shit.
Yeah, 3, where Black Cats bring good luck. And well, I would like to say Tomas is flagellant light. He's not bashing himself.
Okay.
He's just got the cloth. He just
kind of did the rubber band thing that we all did in middle school, where it's like, here, I'm gonna
snapped it on your arm.
He's like, oh,
yeah,
I'm hardcore.
Pretty much, yeah.
He's just did the eraser
Flagellant
thing
light?
on his hand until he had the tiny scar, and he's like, "No, I'm cool." Okay.
Yeah,
You
pretty
never-
much.
You never
Well,
did that. I didn't either.
Well, because Tomas was such a good student and a devout practitioner of the holy arts, he was promoted to the position of prior of Santa Cruz Monastery in Segovia, he was about 32 years old. So
Okay.
he's decently old. So we're skipping some time because he just really didn't have much to do until he was about 32 years old. He lives for a good long time, though. This is what the shitty part about.
Evil people always do. Evil people always do.
Well, after he was promoted, he would go on to hold this office for 22 years.
God damn.
Yeah, it's a long reign there.
Yeah.
Well, to get to the next part of the story, we have to do some personal matchmaking, right?
Ooh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like this part. Well, Tomas was prior at Santa Cruz. He chose to become confessor to Pedro González de Mendoza, who was a cardinal and archbishop of Seville. So, which must have meant that he was pretty powerful and trusted in the church. Confessor meaning the guy just came and confessed and told all his sins.
So the cardinal confessed to him.
Yeah, he was getting sins from really powerful people. You know?
It's like being the president's therapist. Like, that's like, you're
Yeah,
trusted,
you have
bro.
all the secrets. Yeah.
Yeah. And anyway, Saddam kind of laughed at me, and that kind of hurt my feelings. So that's 9/11 in Iraq. That's how we got there.
Because he got such inroads in with the powerful, he would eventually become confessor to Isabella, who, if you don't know, was Isabella of Castile, future queen and consolidator of all the regions of Spain.
Damn.
And she ended up marrying King Ferdinand II, who would eventually become King Ferdinand II. Well, it was noted that he and Isabella hit it off super quick because they had very similar religious beliefs. And they were both super devout Catholics, and Isabella would eventually be awarded the title of Catholic monarch by Pope Alexander VI.
Damn.
Yeah, which is like the most
Catholic
Catholic person you
queen.
could ever know.
Yeah.
Literally. Yeah.
Damn.
Well, now that Tomas's connections have surely been set up and he has had his background set up as a prior in the Santa Cruz Monastery, let's get into the Inquisitions, because this is exactly why we are talking about Tomas de Torquemada. As much as we talk about serial killers and their crimes specifically against people, I think sometimes it's pertinent to talk about someone who sets up the legal framework for these things to happen.
Truce.
Thomas, as well as setting up the legal framework, also personally participated in the torture and execution of many, many, many people.
I heard the Inquisition was a good show. The Inquisition, what a show, the Inquisition. Bet you're wishing that we go away.
And if you really want to know what happened in the Spanish Inquisition, just watch that movie.
Yeah, History of the World, Part 2.
Yeah, it's right in there. Well, we'll give an estimated figure later on as to how many he was responsible for killing. But for now, I want to get into the Inquisition history, because to know his history, you kind of got to understand how the Spanish Inquisition happened. And, me and Gil talked about it beforehand. Getting into the history is interesting sometimes. We'll try not to deviate too much off track. Just kind of keep it as close as we can to this subject.
The most important thing to remember is that nobody suspects the Spanish Inquisition. Or Monty Python. All right, let's keep going.
Well, the Spanish Inquisition was not the first Inquisition, but was by far the bloodiest. The kingdoms of Germany, France, and especially Italy had the Inquisition start long before the Spanish one, and they started sometime in the mid-1200s. And I want to say the kingdoms of Germany, France, and Italy, because they were not wholly... they were not
Prussia,
wholly conquered.
but
It was Prussia, random.
Yeah. The shit that would eventually be known as the kingdoms.
Germany, France, and Italy.
Yeah.
And as far as bloody, the German, French, and Italian Inquisitions, the kingdoms, were much lighter on sentences and torture than the Spanish Inquisition.
Tickle their feet.
What's funny is I read a Wikipedia thing, and there was literally a tickled their feet, and to get people to
died.
You would have given them all the information, or you would have
everything.
just died?
No, I would have written them novels. I would have actively spied for them if somebody was threatening to tickle the bottom of my feet. Yeah, no, I'm very easy to fold in that way. Don't tell the cops.
The Spanish Tickle Inquisition.
The Ticklesition.
The Kingdom of Spain, once it was set up in 1479, did not yet have an Inquisition, even with its Catholic roots. Aragon, however, did have an Inquisition set up beforehand in the early 1450s. So they had been going for a decent amount of time and had actually become more of a fancy sideshow more than an actual Inquisition. Kind of like the France-German ones. They weren't really killing people. No one really took it seriously at this time. They were kind of like, They weren't really arresting people, torturing and killing them yet. They were just kind of like, we're just looking into some people, whatever. It wasn't big.
It was like the don't ask, don't tell of Inquisitions.
Exactly. They were just like, we don't want to know. We really don't want to know.
Yeah, if you're not Catholic, we just don't want to know. But if you admit it, we'll fuck with you a little bit, but, you know, we're technically supposed to be purging all non-Catholics, and, you know, but...
Yeah. And we'll talk about it later, but a lot of these people were needed for wars.
Yeah.
They didn't want to get rid of these people because they were just like, well, they're going to help in the wars against the Moors.
Yeah.
They're going to go against the Almohads, which were also another Muslim sect coming up into Spain. And so it's like, we need these people. We can't go ahead and kill them or send them away yet.
Yeah.
So Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand II decided kind of high time to bring in some Inquisition. Because, well, there was a lot of civil unrest, and they decided it was because of the separation of Jewish, Muslim, and Catholic people.
Obviously. Literally everybody besides them.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. And they wanted to, obviously, what is a people in power? What are kings and queens in power? It's not us. It's you. It's you guys.
Yeah. Y'all need to learn how to get along. Okay.
Yeah, get along. We know we're separating you on different lines of just religion, but you guys need to get along. Come on, guys. We're here. Look at us.
Look at us.
Look how good we are.
We get along.
We get along.
Why can't you?
I mean, don't look at the jewels and money and all the food I have that you don't have and lands that you don't have. But
it's because God wanted me to have this.
Due to laws, they were separated due to laws being put in place not allowing Jewish or Muslim people to hold public offices or even gather a lot of wealth. They pretty much just shut them down. So they forced them to become Catholic to hold public office, to have any sort of life, to make some money, feed their families. Well, pursuant with changing to Catholicism, they would also have to stop anything that would make them Jewish, any practices, anything that would make them Muslim, any practices that like showed that they were of a different religion. They're pretty much like, you have to stop immediately or you're going to get inquisited.
Going to get your feet tickled.
Now, I don't know if you all remember your history class in high school or college, but I remember it being taught that it was just sinners that were picked up and inquisited. It's not really necessarily true, as the purpose of the Grand Inquisition was to find people who converted to Catholicism that were still practicing their old beliefs. As we said earlier, the conversos, people who converted to Catholicism that were Muslim or Jewish, that went back to that just because they had to kind of make living and would still practice their own beliefs, which Catholicism did not like that. And if you want to say that they were sinners in that way, to the Catholics, that was sinning. But it wasn't just because they were sinning. It was because they wanted control of them. Now that we've gotten here and explained that part of it, let's get back to Tomas De Torquemada. We fast forward just a little bit in his life to 1483, which was about 2 to 4 years after the Inquisitions had officially begun in Spain. Thomas was then promoted to a Grand Inquisitor of Spain, somehow by King Ferdinand II, and he was 63 at this time.
God damn.
Yeah, so he'd been living a full life already.
That's almost enough to be an American president. It's almost old enough to run for office in America these days.
That's true. God, that's true, because now they're all 70s, 80s. But think about it, though. They liked that they were older, which is weird. And I don't get it either, because like, you'd think you'd want somebody that was younger, hipper, up with the new lingo, ready to help.
It's almost like we just keep making the same mistakes, Joey.
We're on a cycle, Gil. We're on a cycle. Well, setting up his newfound leadership as the Grand Inquisitor of Spain, he set about 28 articles that would help him basically set up the whole organization. And I say organization because it's literally became an organization. That's how he thought of it.
This is the church secret police.
Yep.
And the 28 articles, which a lot of people were disappointed to find It was 28 BuzzFeed
Yes.
articles. So that was really fucking confusing. But, you know, hey, if you understand the lore, do you understand BuzzFeed?
And you had to fucking click through each one.
Oh my God, and the pop-ups.
You had to fucking click through everyone. Oh, every time there was a pop-up and you're just like, God damn it. Why isn't there I just want to read all 28 in one page.
Instead of like, please submit your email, it's like, please submit a confession. You're like, I just did that.
I just told on my neighbor, okay? Every time you click one, you have to tell a new neighbor that's freaking practicing.
15 people you know that were actually secretly still studying their religion. And just like, oh man, I gotta find out.
They all died last week. Oh,
wait a second. Mom?
Now, I don't want to go in and go through all 28 articles because that's a freaking long list, but I will list a few of the ones that happen to matter most, honestly. The most common among these articles was the Edict of Grace. It said, if anybody left the city just before the arrival of the Inquisitors, they were given a period of 30 days that they could come back to the city to be interrogated on why they left.
Inquisited.
Yep. If they did not return within 30 days, they were seen as a heretic and they were already guilty.
That makes sense. That totally tracks.
Yeah. Not only were you like, oh, cool, like I'm gone, I left, I don't have to deal with this. They're like, we're going to fucking track you down. We will find you because someone knew where you were. Somebody knew where you were.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Why did this family move out just before the SS came into town or the Gestapo, right? Like, why did you move?
It's the same thing.
You had nothing to hide.
Article 3 was one of the ones that most people were aware of. If a person was asked if they were heretics, they could turn on their neighbors, giving them up as a form of penance so that maybe they would be spared of the punishment. However, this rarely worked because they would also just be sent to jail as the other people they gave up of their neighbors. So it really didn't matter. Tomas was just like, I don't care. You're still guilty.
Yeah. 2 for 1, baby. We're lying to heathens, which means it's not lying.
Exactly. And it didn't matter.
Literally, that was their mindset.
It didn't matter. They threw him in jail anyways because they're like, we already know you're guilty.
It's kind of like, you know, like cops are legally allowed to lie to you, but you are not allowed to lie to cops. Isn't that weird? Anyways.
Very weird. Kind of coinciding with what they're dealing with right now in this story. Well, Article 9 dealt with the children of the convicted, and this is like fucking horrifying. If there were children that were under the age of 20, which is kind of saying that they're 19 or younger, that they're kids, and so they're basically saying 20 and older is adults, which now we think of 18 and older as adults.
Teenagers pretty much weren't. That was a 20th century invention. It's teenagers.
Yeah.
Like literally, that did not exist as a concept. It wasn't until after the Civil War in the United States that the idea of like young adult was an actual fucking concept. So there was child and then adult. That was it. There was no in between, which is why like when we look back at child labor laws and shit like that, like it wasn't just revolutionary because, you know, 4-year-olds, you know, weren't just fucking planting dynamite 1,400 feet under the ground in coal mines anymore. But it was because it also brought in a social revolution with the concept of actually like children, it being extended. Because it used to just be like baby, adult. Know? Like it was, oh, you can walk, you're working.
Oh no, true. Well, it had a lot to do with the farming areas, you know, and like that's most agricultural. So you were pretty much working as soon as you could. And that just kind of extended over into when mechanical and labor and warehousing and factories came up, and they're just like, well, they were working in the fields, might as well be able to work in the factory.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, their tiny hands can handle all the small parts of the machinery much better.
For sure. Well, these people that were under the age of 20, they were required to confess and name anyone else they knew as a heretic, just like the adults. But after they did, they weren't held blameless in a way, but they kind of were. They would then be thrown out on the street afterwards with nothing. So like they were basically, their parents get convicted, they throw their parents in jail, you know, kill them, torture them. The kids are just like, well, good luck, you're done. You don't get anything. Your parents dead. I'm sorry. Good luck. You were thrown out on the street. You had nothing. You weren't even able to claim anything. And you know who took it? The clergy. Yeah. Who were you going to guess? The kids? You're going to guess the social services came in and were like, we'll help you. And, you know.
Wait a second. This wasn't also a money grab?
No, because that wasn't basically what the church was doing the whole time. Well, even people who were dead were not able to get around it.
Damn.
Article 20 said if a person was accused after death and convicted, which I don't know how they had the trial because they were dead.
Yeah.
What defense could they have? They were dead. They would dig up the bones and body and then burn the bones and body at the stake. Like, ha.
Damn. That's some petty
It's so
shit.
fucking petty. It's like, what is that even doing anyways? Like, they're already dead. You know, it's like not helping. I guess it was more of like a afterlife.
At that point, they were just trying to fill a quota. No, at that point, somebody was just trying to fill a quota. Like, how many Inquisits did you have this month, Brother Joey? And it's like, I had 15 femur bones that I inquisited this month. You know, like, I was finding them in the afterlife, ripping them out of heaven and throwing them back into the pits of hell. It's damn, he's
Good work.
hardcore.
Good work, Joey. Yep.
Good work.
Well, I like to say, even in death, the tax man gets his due. So that's kind of the way I see it there. Literally.
Damn.
It's truth. Well, the last one we're going to talk about was the nail in the coffin, so to speak. It gave the right of inquisitors to torture the accused until they gave up any information they were asked, right? So it was just like, that's pretty much par for the course. It was the last one we want to talk about. There was two kind of guidelines other than those, right? So that they went by. And I want to list these two right now. Talk about right now. So torture could not endanger the subject's life. Torture was allowed when guilt was half proven or even not proven, or there existed a presumption of guilt, or confession was considered incomplete.
So literally, it was allowed if they thought that they should arrest this person, basically. Like, the only reason why they would be in that situation is if there was suspicion. Like, that's why the fuck else would they be there?
It's flipped it on its side. We talk about the idea in, the United States.
You're guilty until proven guilty.
This is literally what they're doing. You go there, you're already guilty. It doesn't matter, Yeah.
Straight to jail.
Straight to you. The second one was torture could not cause the subject to lose a limb. The defendant was informed that if he died, broke any limbs, or lose consciousness during torment, it would be
he was guilty.
His fault and not theirs, the Inquisitors, because with such impudence, he put himself in danger of life and health. They're blaming what they're doing to him because he did this to himself. He or she did this to himself. Quit hitting yourself. Quit hitting yourself. Quit hitting yourself. Literally.
Dude. I love something to keep in mind here. Maybe this is just like pushing it too far off, and I know we have to get to good old Thomas at some point.
We're gonna get back in a minute.
That's the point of the show here. But I got to bring up, this is what they're doing to fellow Europeans at this time, right? When there is at least a social veil of there still being a question of guilt, right? Because that's what all this is. It's just tiptoeing around political gains and shit. But imagine what the fuck they're doing at this time to folks in the quote-unquote New World who they knew for a fucking fact were not Christians. Bro. Like, this is what they're doing to their own kind, quote-unquote, right? Like,
it's fuck shit. And I want to repeat, those two guidelines that we just talked about were created by the Pope. They were created by the Catholic Church. And so those were
the most pious.
The articles, the 28 articles, were created by Tomas De Torquemada. He was the one who created that because he wanted to create the guidelines of this organization and kind of get it.
It's like, this needs some order
exactly.
to it.
So he can circumvent the torture rules that he had already done.
So he can circumcise the torture rule.
Hey, no, you actually can't do that. That's Jewish. Yeah,
yeah, not yet. Yeah.
It's Jewish. You're not supposed to do that.
What? Show me your wee willy wing way.
I honestly pretty sure sometimes that's how it came down. Just get them naked.
Guaranteed.
Right, you're guilty. We know you're guilty.
We're going to give you that foreskin back with a series of bricks, ropes, and a lever pulley system. You'll find out.
Well, these are the ones that I think gives Tomas such a big lean into serial killer, maybe even a mass killer, if you can think about it like that. He's like a masochist because he's creating all of this that's going to get all these people killed. And again, I think he was we'll talk about it later, but he was in the room for
Loving every
sure.
minute.
Loving every minute.
Loving
Yep.
every minute.
Pulling at his little foreskin.
Oh.
Well, I did a little research into some of the tactics used during the Spanish Inquisition to elicit information that Tomas put forth to do, right? But I actually want to shed some light on whitewashing of some of the history that I found on a Catholic website that was defending the Inquisitions in a weird way. And I know we're getting a little bit off, but I have to push this through because it fucking pissed me off. And I'm going to go back to what's happening during, Thomas's time as well while we're talking about this. So on this website, they describe the Inquisition as light and not at all what we're told about. This website says torture was not used by inquisitors to elicit confession. And in fact, the inquisitors never tortured anybody at all. It was actually the civil authorities who did this. Partially true. But this is like saying the U.S. didn't torture anybody in Guantanamo Bay. It was just the Blackwater mercenaries we hired.
Yeah. Hey, the queen and the king, they were the head of the religious institutions of government, and it was the folks that were working for them, which were technically part of the church, but it wasn't the church.
No, for sure.
It's not the priests that are diddling little boys, because if they diddle a little boy, they're not a priest anymore. So it was never a priest.
No, it was never. And according to a lot of information that came out in the 1400s, scriptures, books, scrolls, everything written about this time, torture did in fact fucking happen. It wasn't used to elicit confession, so to speak, and that is actually correct. But it was used to get more information. It was used to get people to tell on other people. Because, as we'll talk about later, the trial was already done by the time you went to trial. You were already guilty.
Yeah, this was literally, it was a kangaroo court. It was a kangaroo court. You can't confess in a kangaroo court. You're already fucking guilty. It's literally impossible to confess when on the book, you're already considered as, guilty. Then your confessions, in this case, they're just like, well, you're a fucking heathen, so you're lying anyways.
Yep.
There's no such thing as confession in that situation because you're not valid to begin with.
He built this whole system just to take people who he deemed already guilty to accumulate more power. This is a power financial grab. It's literally everything we talk about. Tomas was an evil genius to set these guidelines, and I hate to say it like that. But I also want to combat the second point made by that Catholic website defending the Spanish Inquisition, which was exactly what I just said. It wasn't used for political climbing. It for sure fucking was used for political climbing. And I want to tell you why. Because he went after people that were above him. He went after royal families in Spain. The biggest person he went after was the nephew of King Ferdinand II, Don Jaime de Navarre. He was the Prince of Navarre. He was basically royalty, and he was convicted of heresy. Now, his punishment was not as severe as most other cases. He was made to walk around the Metropolitan Church while being whipped by two priests. So he might have liked it, who knows? The royals were into some weird stuff. Well, he also went after a bishop of Colahera named Pedro de Arando. He was thrown in jail once he was convicted of heresy, and 2 years later, died in jail. So basically, he just went up people above him, knocked him out. Yeah, I like to say that Tomas is like a Sith Lord hovering over someone being pulled apart saying, "Good, good, let the ropes flow through you." Like, let the anger flow through you is what he would say. And he just, the ropes are pulling apart their skin. I'm sorry, I'm a nerdy person. Well, Tomas De Torquemada's decree made it mandatory for inquisitors to be present during torture to question. So again, it wasn't just civil authorities doing the torture. He made sure that there was an inquisitor in there, and he was in there with people being tortured. It's been written that he was in there to do this stuff. Yeah. Well, the Spanish clergy was not blameless at all. I just want to keep, hitting that into people's head. Well, we're going to talk about the torture that he helped create, as well as the regular Spanish Inquisition. He helped create this torture, and we're going to go into it because I know a lot of people want to hear about the torture. No, Gil, you don't want to hear about it?
I want to hear about it.
Well, the first method of torture that they would start with was the hoist. It was basically just a simple rope on a winch on the roof of the questioning room. The other end of the rope was tied to the prisoner's hands behind their back. So their hand was low on their back, like handcuffs normally. They had them, as the questioning would start to begin, the torturer would pull up on the rope, pulling the prisoner's hands up and back.
Oh, no.
They would keep pulling up until the full body was off the ground. And the prisoner's hands...
Oh, so their arms are being pulled backwards, connected. It's like, picture somebody in handcuffs and there's a rope tied to the little chain connecting both of the handcuffs, and then they're just being lifted up by being pulled that way, like behind their back. So it's literally popping both of their shoulders out of their sockets.
And they would keep pulling. It sounds horrible. When I was reading about it, it's horrible. They would keep asking questions, and if they didn't get the answer they would like,
this is how trapeze artists were invented.
I think so. Yeah. Well, they were definitely in a trap. Well, they would pull them up off the ground. So like basically on their tippy toes. Questions not answered right. All right, time to pull them up. So they pull them up all the way almost to the roof and ask a question. Nope. They would literally drop it ever so slightly but fast. It's like, let go of the rope, catch it, and then just catch it. So they yanked on their arms. And most of the time, it would pull their arms out of their socket. So they're basically just hanging there. And they would continuously do this until they would pass out.
They talked.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then, which is the most heinous part of this, the torturer would just say the torture was postponed.
What?
The reason they'd say postponed, because the letter of the law says, if you say the torture is over, you cannot torture them anymore. It's like letter of law, so they wouldn't.
This is the stupidest technicality. This is the dumbest technicality. Well, looks like we're going to have to delay this torture here. It's like, what? Oh, my arms.
Yeah, and
like, what?
And most of the time they were passed out. Or if the torturer is tired, they're just like, cool, we're done. We'll take a little break.
Yeah.
It's postponed. But
yeah, this is postponed until I take a nap.
Literally, you'll hang up there, you'll be fine. And they wouldn't feed them for 8 hours before, too. So it's like that's also torturing them as well. Obviously, it didn't matter to them.
Yeah.
The next method is something we kind of know of a little more. It's called water torture, of course.
Yeah.
So it's not exactly starting out the way normal, waterboarding we think of it as now starts, right? So they would place the prisoner on a ladder with their feet slightly above the level of their head, right? So their feet are up a little higher than their head, and they're on this ladder.
What? How are they on a ladder with their feet above
It's like a ladder
head?
chair.
That doesn't make sense.
It's not a ladder going up. It's just like a ladder platform.
What? So they're placed on a platform with their feet slightly above their head.
Yeah, but it's ladder-like. So like there's little grooves in it. So like think of a ladder, right? Just a straight up ladder. And then put it on its side at a diagonal down angle. And then you just put somebody on top of it.
Okay. When I pictured ladder, but I also specifically pictured like an A-frame ladder. And I was just like, that doesn't make any goddamn sense. So they're on a bed. They're in a sleeping bag with their feet and uphill.
Yeah, pretty much.
Basically.
And the reason they had ladders was easier to tie cords onto the ladders. So if they were on they had little slats on each one that they could tie it on. So they ended up tied down so tightly that any movement would cause the ropes to cut into the skin of the prisoner, and this was obviously by design. They would then put a rod in between the cord that they had put around the thighs and the arms, and they would...
I was worried about where that rod was going.
That didn't go that far. Then they just would twist it and twist it, and it would get tighter.
Oh, they would just keep tightening the fucking... So like a tourniquet, but
worse. Way worse.
Yeah.
A torture
kit.
Literally, yeah. And this obviously... Obviously you're going to move, though. You're going to move, but every time you moved, the ropes around your arm, the ropes around your stomach, the ropes around your neck would cut into you because they're already so tight.
Yeah. To be fair, for these priests who also whipped themselves with, cattails or beat themselves, that was the softest ropes they had.
Yeah.
Like that was satin.
Yeah, they're
them.
like, oh, you don't like this? Like
we're really not trying to hurt you. This is
a pleasure chamber.
Hang out.
This is a pleasure chamber.
Yeah. We did not mean to get a confession like that, bro. Like we were trying to convince you. We thought this was a honeypot. Okay, honestly.
We're here for the pleasure, not the pain. Pleasure monks. Well, they would then, just to kind of get into the actual waterboarding part of it.
I think I saw the documentary. Yeah.
Just to get into kind of the waterboarding part of it, because that's the first start of it. They would just wrap it around there. If they weren't getting what they wanted to hear, they would then close the nostrils of the prisoner, right? They would use like tape, not tape, but technically they would use strips, some kind of strip that would like close their nose, nostrils, so they couldn't breathe out of it. And then they would place a bestezo, which was a pointed end of an iron rod to hold open the mouth of the prisoner.
Yeah.
So basically sticking this pointy iron rod into your mouth to hold it open so you couldn't close it or else it'd right into the back of your throat.
And then they would play Barbra Streisand on repeat over and over and over again.
And you literally would just push your head into the rod to die so you wouldn't hear that.
Yeah.
Well, they would then put a long linen strip called a toca into the mouth and slowly pour water down their throats. So this would simulate drowning, obviously, similar to the waterboarding torture that they used most recently.
And when they gagged, a metal pipe would be jabbing in the back of their throat.
Can't swallow because it's down your throat. So you're basically just constantly drowning for as long as they would torture you. You're not going to die.
/ having the back of your throat.
Yeah, literally.
stabbed.
You're not going to die. And they could keep doing this because you're not technically drowning in that way, but your body feels like you're drowning. So you're just constantly moving. You're also cutting your arms. You're cutting your legs. Everything is just getting messed up. The last one I want to talk about, at least, is the least used one, right? The last one I want to talk about is the least used one. It's not a favorite. It's pretty bad.
It's totally my favorite.
It's okay. Because it was mostly used on women and children. It's called the stocks. And I know you think about people, in stocks with their like head in, their arms in, they get apples and fruit and stuff thrown at them.
This is actually where the name stock market came from.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
Fruits and, no cap.
No. This torture method. Keep going.
Going into the stock room and trying to sell stocks and buy stocks.
Why do you think they're called stock brokers? Okay, I'm just saying, what are they doing to us?
Putting us in the
continue.
stocks. Well, they're basically just two pieces of wood, easy, joined together with small sections, which you put the legs through, right? So you'd separate the feet from the rest of the leg.
Okay.
They would then put oil on the feet and then light them on fire. Now, I want to reiterate that this was only used against children and women to testify against their parents and significant others.
Liar, liar, feet on fire. That's what we say around here. Ha 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 ha. Okay.
Burn.
So,
but they wouldn't, they weren't burning them alive. Because they wanted to get the confession.
No.
They just burned the shit out of their feet. Like basically mostly burned their feet off.
Friday night foot fever. That's what we call it. Ha ha.
Pretty much.
So they would burn their feet off, which is a great way to keep them from running.
Yeah, they could not leave. Or work.
So let me picture this. They locked their head and their hands into a stock, right? So it's just like, basically 3 holes. The one in the middle is a little bit bigger than the 2 on the outside, right? So your wrists are through, your head's through. And then down below, they had, another set of boards that came together and closed, giant the ankle handcuffs, basically made out of wood. Pour oil on it and say, they were just setting people's feet on fire. That's it. Yeah. It was somebody with a foot torture fetish that started this. I guarantee you.
Yeah. And the last, I don't want to even talk about this one, the torture rack, which everybody knows about this one. If you've seen Braveheart.
I don't.
If you've seen Braveheart when he gets pulled apart by the people pulling his arms and legs apart.
Nope.
Yeah, you've seen Braveheart. Okay, this is the one Mel Gibson movie. It seems like he has a fetish for torture movies.
Makes too much This makes too much sense right now.
But literally, they just pull you apart. And they pull your legs and limbs, apart from each other. Pull them apart, and that's pretty much it. It's horrifying and horrifically painful.
They lay you down on a table, right? A big-ass flat table. And they have rope tied to your extremities. So to your ankles and to your wrists. And they make your body into a giant X shape, basically, because you're being pulled in 4 separate directions. And they start cranking. And they crank. 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 Until shit's not just popping out of the fucking socket, but the tissue starts to tear. And then they keep fucking cranking until one of the last things holding your fucking body together is the thin layer of your epidermal, of your fucking flesh, of your skin. And then that starts to fucking tear. And your limbs literally get ripped off from your fucking body. So that's what Joey's yada-ing through. Okay,
I just said I didn't want to talk about it because it's PTSD from watching that movie.
You're doing an episode on torture. Explain the torture,
Thank you
Joey.
for explaining it to everyone, Gil. I really appreciate that. Yeah.
You're welcome, sir. I got you.
And look, like, I know, we talk about it and we talk about this kind of, not half-heartedly. We really think this is awful. Like, this is really bad stuff. But I want to make this clear that Tomas is putting people through this. Like, when we talk about getting off track, like, this is
Tomas
is the architect and in the room for most of this stuff. I mean, granted, we'll talk about his numbers later. They're in the thousands. He couldn't have been there on all of them, but we know he was on some of them. So, any way you want to cut it, Tomas had his hand involved in the torture and questioning. He also provided the framework, like we just say, for getting those people to the torturers. Now, there was a trial phase during the accusation phase of the Grand Inquisition, right? We kind of talked about it a little bit. And, the trial was basically a fucking sham because if you were picked up, you were pretty much already assumed guilty by the research done on you through torture of another poor soul. Now, you weren't told what you did or who accused you, and you were just thrown into trial without any information. But you were given a lawyer. Yeah, right? But the lawyer was actually someone who was on the side of the Inquisition and was part of the Inquisition, so it really didn't help you.
Your lawyer is Mr. Waterbucket.
Well, you weren't getting any help from them. And honestly, when these people went to trial, they already knew what was happening. They didn't trust these people to tell them anything. But what's really bad is because they didn't know anything, a lot of times they would incriminate themselves. They would just be like, well, I was just out at, celebrating the Sabbath. Ha-ha, we got him, like pretty much just like we got this person already. And even though they already said they're guilty, like now we really have something to throw them in jail for,
On the rare occasion they got an actual fucking confession.
And I mean, they weren't really looking for confessions. They were just looking for more information to get the next person.
Power grabs.
Yeah, because you go to trial, you're already guilty.
This is the same shit that happened underneath Stalin. I just want to point that out. Like, this is the exact same shit that happened underneath Stalin. Like, this is when shit goes to shit in power institutions. Like, this is the kind of shit that happens.
We can say it happens under almost any dictatorship. Because, you remember when we talked about Chile, Colonial Dignidad? Literally the same thing. Pinochet was just taking people. You're already guilty, doesn't matter. You're going to get killed. You're going to get tortured for no reason.
McCarthy
era, same thing.
The Red Scare in the United States.
100%. To a less degree. They didn't really murder them, but they were ruining their careers and they're ruining everything that their life.
Everything shy of.
Literally.
Let's put it that way.
Everything shy of murder.
Including literally getting people into rooms of CIA agents behind a two-way mirror where they had prostitutes or sex workers give folks LSD, their John's LSD, to try to listen to their fucking confessions while they were happening on the other side and they were having sex. Literally everything besides the torture, and I'm going to go ahead and say there was probably a lot of torture.
There was definitely torture in that area.
But this shit pops up. From time to time.
Like we always talk about in BCR, we always talk about things are cyclical, and humans, like we talked about on the AI thing, they kind of just keep doing the same thing over and over again, and I like to connect it that way because it's human experience. We all kind of keep doing the same things over and over again with the same problems, Well, the way Thomas set it up, it was so rife for persecution and accusation. In 1485, he made a decree that all Jewish rabbis were under the obligation to give any information they had pertaining to the activities of conversos and anyone in the Jewish community. Yeah, now he's targeting those people too.
Sounds real familiar.
It does. So he's trying to get their information, and now they're like, well, now we have to do it because, first off, you didn't have any power over us before then, but now you do. Now you have a little law above us, which was like kind of what he wanted. He wanted power over top of people. It was made it super easy to take anybody that he wanted or deemed ill fit to live their lives.
Yeah.
There was 2 terms that would happen after the trial, one called the auto de fe, or the act of faith. The first was basically a private sentence, which you were told in private your sentence, and it was generally given the lesser of sentences, right? So this was...
This is the Club Med fucking approach to like... This is Donald Trump.
Oh, I loved it. That was a good slip. I loved
it. This is Donald Trump being charged with 34 felonies, being convicted of all 34. We can say it's a sham trial. Folks can say that or whatever. But I also want to point out how many other folks that aren't that popular and aren't former presidents also get charged with felonies that are sham trials, right? If we want to fucking say that. And they're not able to walk out of the courtroom, homie. Like,
or go home.
Yep. So however you want to fucking spin that in the legal institution, no matter how fucked the courts are at any point in history, so this is the Donald Trump appearance. And I'm not saying Donald wasn't guilty.
No, he was guilty on it.
But, oh, yes. And there was fucked up shit behind it. I'm not a fucking Trump fan at all. But yeah, it's getting off topic. But the point is, this was the like, hey man, did you hear they're like kind of frustrate you? So this is what we're gonna do, but it's okay. We got a spot for you.
Yeah, and this was, like you said, it was used for the people that they didn't really want to really persecute.
They were still useful later.
They were still useful later. They were powerful.
Yeah.
You know, and they didn't want to show off that they were really guilty. People knew who got pulled in there. It wasn't a secret who got pulled into these trials.
Yeah.
You know, there also was...
Well, there was also like 90 people being tortured in a room at a time.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't just one person at a time. It was like a shit. This was a day job for a lot of... This honestly created a lot of jobs.
It did. Yeah. I mean, heck, they would have allowed it nowadays.
Feet tickling.
Yep.
Feet tickling. Seriously, one of the most up and coming careers at this time.
Yeah, I guess so. But don't tickle them too good. Because then you'll be thrown right in jail, too.
You'll be thrown in jail.
Well, I do want to say that this private sentence, like the auto de fe, not really used. It was not really used because Thomas hated it. Tomas hated this. And if this happened and he found somebody that got a lighter sentence than what he thought was right, he would go, fuck that. He'd bring them back to trial and re-give them a sentence. If he didn't think that it was worse, it was bad enough.
He double jeopardied that shit.
That didn't exist back then. They didn't give a fuck. It's against God.
I know.
You know? Yeah, it's against God.
Yeah.
Alex Trebek would have been pissed. Well,
he double Jesus'd that shit.
Well, this leads us to the next form of part of the trial, the sentencing part, the auto publica, which was meant to serve as a huge deterrent to other people. It was basically a public...
existing.
Yeah, for existing.
This is a deterrent. Also, you have no say in anything.
Yeah, it doesn't matter, even if you didn't do it, right? So it was basically a public viewing punishment, right? So they're basically showing everybody. So there was different forms of this. It wasn't all just, one thing. So the first form was basically exile, right? So you were just gone, you kicked out. You had to leave, and that was the first form. The second one was confiscation of property, which also kind of went along with the exile. They just basically took their property.
Give me your shit and get out of here.
That was mostly used on all of them. Scourging, burning them, not to death, but just burning them. Yep.
Light the fire, give me your shit and get out of here.
Galley slavery was the next one.
Work for me, give me your shit, die and get out of here.
Exactly. And a really nice one, relaxation.
Chill out here.
And I know what you're thinking. Relaxation doesn't sound that bad, right?
Sounds pretty nice. Yeah.
Wrong.
Oh.
It meant being burned at the stake.
Oh.
Yeah. We're relaxing your soul to heaven. Good luck.
Fuck.
Yeah. It was not very relaxing.
All right.
Yep.
Talk about language changing over time. Okay.
Right? Yeah.
I'm just trying to chill this weekend. Just trying to relax. And you're just saying that to your friend who just time traveled here, wink, wink, to a few weeks from now. From, the 13 and 1400s and whatever. And they're just like, oh, Lord.
Oh, God. What have you been doing?
What a strange way to to find reprieve.
I wonder if that transferred over to our like go society and how relaxation is so bad nowadays. You know, nobody's like relax. It's all about like, let's go work, get your game on, go hustle, do stuff, you know? And you know, maybe they're just
grind
like
culture.
Maybe if they talked about that a little more, people would grind a little more, you know? Oh, if you're
Be
relaxing, you're
epistemology.
getting burned alive.
I mean, capitalism does a good job of convincing us that's what's happening, right?
That's
if
true.
you're not working, you're losing money.
You're burning cash.
Ain't that a fucked way to measure time?
Right? Well, yeah. And I can say that I've thought about that and tried to put my time into how much hourly, like if I buy a coffee, that's like a half hour work, something like that. You know, like you can go down a really bad rabbit hole, but it is helpful sometimes to think of it like that. You know, sucks because then you put yourself into
Federal
value.
Reserve Inquisition.
Yeah,
That's what's happening.
Yeah, the FRI. Well, I want to get into some statistics behind it because it goes to show the just general hugeness of the people being accused and punished. The estimation is around 150,000 people were prosecuted during the Spanish Inquisition. That's a fuck ton of people.
Yeah.
And about 3,000 to 5,000 people were burned at the stake.
Honestly, I thought there'd be more.
I thought a little bit too. But in the 1300s, there were about 7.5 million people living in Spain.
But in the 1300s, there was only 5 people. So, like,
They lost a lot of people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gotcha.
There's 7.5 million people living in Spain. So if you think about that, that's a lot of percentage of the population being prosecuted, right?
Yeah. You're like literally 7 degrees away from somebody who's 7,000 degrees. Gotcha.
Yeah.
You motherfucker.
that was really good.
But what?
Now, in the 1500s, there were 6.5 million people living in Spain. Think about this.
Okay.
1 million less people in the span of 200 years.
Well, there were also plagues happening. Let's give some credit. To
There
the
were,
Black Death.
but this is the
rolling on through.
only set of years there was a decrease in population.
That's true.
All through the rest of history. That was the only time.
That's true.
But this can be explained too. As much as they were killing people.
This explains why Catholics were so against birth control, because they were also actively just fucking murdering everybody around them. Seriously, have like 18 kids, because we're gonna kill like 17 of them. Like, yeah. Because if the Lord don't get them, we'll bring them. Like, you know.
Well, that's freaking true. Well, you know, that can be attributed to, you know, people going to the New World as well, because that's about the time they started going. And this could also be attributed to the Alhambra decree. So not only were Jewish Muslim people being tortured, executed, they were now being expelled from Spain. Not only was Tomas the cause of a bunch of people being burned at the stake and murdered, he now used his influence on Ferdinand and Isabella in 1492 to expel any non-Catholic from Spain.
Could have started with that, bro. Like, I'm just saying, like, okay, we're tired of torturing you. Could you just, like, go now? And they're like, dude, we've literally been trying to.
We've been trying to leave. You've
Like,
kept us here.
like,
Yeah.
Nobody that was non-Catholic at that time, whether in secret or in public, was like, finally, we can go.
Yeah.
Like, nobody said that. He was just like, haha, got you at the border. Like, damn it.
You got us again.
Like,
Well, actually, the funny part
such
of that,
bullshit.
it is
That's
even
such
more
bullshit.
that the decree made it so Jewish people not willing to convert, like we had talked about, would have 4 months to sell any land or property they had to leave the kingdom.
Okay.
They couldn't sell the land or property for gold or silver because that was forbidden.
They could only sell it for Spanish currency?
They could only sell it for food or horses or any like tangible goods because it wasn't legal for them to sell it. It's so awful.
Oh my God, this is so dirty. This is so dirty, dude. Oh my God.
And this played into Tomas's hands because, well, they really didn't tell the people that were being expulsed that they had to leave until there was like a fucking month left.
So wait, they put it on paper, which meant So they put it on paper in the church, which meant that God saw it, so it was 100% legitimate. And they could wait until the last fucking second to tell them to be like, well, God saw it, and that's all that fucking matters, so get the fuck out. Damn. So a black market immediately popped up that was actually transferring funds to the folks, and then that black market also helped accentuate the Inquisition, and okay, gotcha.
Yep.
Humans.
Yep,
Gotcha.
Exactly. It made it so the Jewish and Muslim people, because they had not long to leave, it's hard to sell their house. So where did their house go?
Yeah.
Clergy took it.
The heaven?
It went to heaven.
Not
Their house
heaven.
went to heaven. Yeah, their house went to heaven.
Their house got tortured.
It was burned at the stake. Now we watch this house burn at the stake for its crimes against the Catholicism.
Tell us what you know. Door slowly creaks. We know it.
We knew it. Got him. Tell on your neighbor. They had to give their money to somebody. And so a lot of times they would try to give their money to the clergy that were trying to literally capture them. They're like, hey, take this money. We're leaving. We want to leave. Like, we want to get out of here.
Yeah.
Take this money.
We've
and
literally been trying to, but you haven't given us papers because you don't actually view us as fucking citizens. So, like, bro, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're giving them money to leave. So they're like trying to bribe them, trying to get out. And it didn't fucking work because they gave the money to them. And they're like, cool. Well, you tried to bribe a clergy person. Straight to Yale. Straight to jail. Taking them right to jail. So it's like every little bit, it didn't help, Yeah. It did, however, help Thomas more because before this, he really did not have jurisdiction over Jewish people or Muslim people. There was no jurisdiction. He only had jurisdiction over conversos. But now that this happened and this decree came through, and Ferdinand and Isabella were like, it's all on you. You're doing it. You're going to oversee this.
Now he was head of the Gestapo, and he was able to do this.
Yeah,
okay.
Literally, Gestapo. And God, in fact, did stop them.
He did stop them.
Yes. A lot of them to death.
Ooh.
And a lot of them did convert. A lot of them were like, dude, we don't have any time to leave. We can't sell our house. We can't do that in this amount of time. So they converted. So he even had more conversions. And guess what? All those conversions fell directly under him. And then you know what he did? Captured them, tortured them because they weren't immediately stopping all their stuff. They weren't not practicing the Sabbath.
What do you know?
They weren't
What are you
cutting.
connected to. Did you not magically learn all of our traditions, customs, religious holidays, and beliefs in the past 24 hours? Well, you're probably practicing some shit.
Yeah.
Let me see that wee willy wing wang. Oh, shit, it snipped.
There we go. Yep, going to jail. Yep, going to torture.
Yeah.
Well, it also helped, and he was allowed to do this in January of 1492. The Spanish won their war against the Moors and drove them out of Granada. So now, like we talked about earlier, they no longer need troops. They no longer need the money that Jewish people and Muslim people were giving to them. So they're like, cool.
They don't need cannon fodder anymore.
Exactly. Let's get rid of them.
That was kind of a good year for Spain, for the royalty.
For
over
sure.
there.
Yeah, getting all the money. They won their war.
1492, Columbus he sailed the ocean blue.
Mm-hmm. Yep, another good part of it.
It was, I'm just saying, like,
Columbus did.
It was a good year for them. Anyways.
And we don't like talking about Christopher Columbus here.
We just like to talk about torture of Europeans.
Okay. Yeah, he tortured a lot of other people.
Yeah.
He was also a fucking dumbass, so.
I'm just so glad he died of syphilis, slowly going fucking mad, and in a prison in the Caribbean.
Well, as time went on, there are obviously numerous complaints against Tomas by people in high places to the Pope to rescind his Inquisitor status. And I know you're laughing at this, but it's obviously there was so many complaints about this guy.
1-800-PIOUS, how may I take your call? Another complaint. Yes, okay. So you're gonna want to hit 7, then you're gonna want to hit 7, and then you're gonna want to hit 7 again. No problem, thank you. 1-800-PIOUS, how may I take your call? Another complaint. So you're going to want to hit 7, and you're going to want to hit 7. You want to hit 7 again. All right, bless you. Thank you. 1-800-PIOUS, how may I take your call? It's just like, I just picture like a fucking operator just sitting there just being like, Yeah, it's been a busy few centuries here.
And it's true. Like, it is true about this part of it is that there were so many people that complained that were like in high places being like,
Why?
do you know? Yeah, why? Do you know what this guy is actually doing? You know that your Grand Inquisition really wasn't meant to do this. Like, we're not supposed to kill this many people in this amount of time. You're getting rid of a lot of people.
We kind of like need them. Like
They're actually, some of them are actually converting to being Catholic and wanting to be Catholic, and he's kind of killing them for no reason.
kind of just seems like a power
It's not
grab.
setting a good
I
example.
thought we were the only ones allowed to do that. Why are you doing that?
Pope Alexander, who was the Pope at the time, was just like, all right, I'm getting a lot of complaints, so I think I need to like send some people to kind of
Check in.
push him aside.
Yeah.
And he's a little old at this time, so Pope Alexander was like, let's just say that he kind of has failing health and he needs some assistance in quotations.
Okay. This is like high level corruption in the church.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like what the Catholic churches did most recently when they just sent other popes away to different spots, or other cardinals and bishops away and people to different spots, just to be like, oh, we fixed the problem. But they did not do
The
that.
exact same thing that police departments do.
Exactly. Yep.
Something power corrupts. Absolutely. I don't know.
Absolutely.
No, I can't be.
Absolutely. He sent his last set of instructions in 1496. After moving out of the royal court, they kicked him out of the royal court because they were just kind of like, he's being a problem. So
Yeah.
Ferdinand and Isabella are kind of like, get the fuck out of here. And he eventually moved into Avila Monastery.
Okay.
So just kind of going through it, he did end up dying in his sleep September 6th in 1498.
This is Tomas.
Yep, Tomas. Yep. Tomas is actually dead now.
Damn.
He died.
So he had a fully successful life, got everything that he ever fucking wanted, and died of old age.
Never faced justice. Yep, never faced justice.
Damn.
For anything he did. Not even for breaking, because he was literally breaking the Pope's credence. The Pope's
Which was
doing what you're not supposed to do.
Which honestly gave him a lot of leeway. It was hard to break. He was trying his best. He was torturing those policies to try to figure out how they could break.
He was torturing and torching those policies.
I mean, because it was like, yo, they're guilty no matter what. They're guilty if we think that they're guilty, and even if we don't think they're guilty, they're fucking guilty. And if they're, if they're a heathen, then doesn't matter what the fuck you do. It's open, it's open season on their ass. He still managed to fuck that up.
Yep.
Which not enough to actually get in any kind of trouble. But damn.
Now, even after he died, the Spanish Inquisition lasted all the way until 1834.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. When Queen Regent Maria Cristina de Bourbon issued a decree ending the Inquisition. But, to be fair, when Napoleon invaded Spain, he actually put an end to the Inquisition, and it didn't really come back in full force when the Spain retook it. The last person to be killed by the Spanish Inquisition was Gaetano Ripoll, who was a Spanish school teacher, and he was killed in 1826.
Jesus.
Not more than 200 years ago.
Yeah,
It lasted a long time. Well, truly, Tomas De Torquemada was a vile and heinous being trying to take the Inquisitions further than they had gone before. He implemented forms of torture on people who did not deserve it. He lived a long life, which also he was not deserving of, passing away at 78.
Bro. What?
So old for that time, right?
He was the Michael Jordan of torture.
He was. He set the stage for everything. And he fucking terrible.
Yeah.
One person set the stage for so many atrocities against people of differing faiths because it honestly can't be said enough that both Jewish and Muslim people suffered from his decrees and trials. It wasn't just the torture of conversos, it was the expulsion of Jewish and Muslim people from their homes. Some places they had lived for so long. He was responsible, and I'm going to say it now, for some 2,000 deaths in tortures and burning at the stake.
God damn.
That does not account for the people who died on their way from their homes in Aragon and Spain which probably would put it in the tens of thousands, because a lot of those people were killed when they were leaving their houses. And then when they were trying to get on boats to get out of Spain, they were just killed and their money was taken by sailors.
Yeah, so he was just responsible for 2,000 deaths directly.
Indirectly
Indirectly, tens of thousands.
Yep. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to the Black Cat Report in episode 102, the Spanish Inquisition and Tomas De Torquemada. Remember to like, review, and follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Also, follow us on Instagram for our most up-to-date information. If you stay after the credits, you'll hear me reading an excerpt from Pit and the Pendulum by Edgar Allan Poe. See you on the other side. The inquisitorial vengeance had been hurried by my twofold escape, and there was to be no more dallying with the King of Terrors. The room had been square. I saw that 2 of its iron angles were now acute. 2, consequently, obtuse. The fearful difference quickly increased with a low rumbling or moaning sound. In an instant, the apartment had shifted its form into that of a lozenge. But the alteration stopped, not here. I neither hoped nor desired it to stop. I could have clasped the red walls to my bosom as a garment of eternal peace. Death, I said. Any death but that of the pit. Fool! Might I have not known that into the pit it was the object of the burning iron to urge me? Could I resist its glow? Or, if even that, could I withstand its pressure? And now, flatter and flatter grew the lozenge, with a rapidity that left me no time for contemplation. Its center, and of course its greatest width, came just over the yawning gulf. I shrank back, but the closing walls pressed me resistantly onward. At length, for my seared and writhing body, there was no longer an inch of foothold on the firm floor of the prison. I struggled no more, but the agony of my soul found vent in one loud, long, and final scream of despair. I felt that I tottered upon the brink. I averted my eyes. There was a discordant hum of human voices. There was a loud blast as of many trumpets. There was a harsh grating as of 1,000 thunders. The fiery walls rushed back. An outstretched arm caught my own as I fell, fainting into the abyss. It was that of General Lasalle. The French army had entered Toledo. The Inquisition was in the hands of its enemies.